My name is Carlin Burisenko, and you are listening to the Actively Unwoke podcast. So, today, what I'm going to be doing is starting to record the articles that I'm writing as part of my Woke Mind series over on my Substack, which you can access by going to activelyunwoke.substack.com, or alternatively, you can go to the proper URL, which is Carlin, Karlyn, .substack.com. This is my evil ploy to try to get you guys to learn how to spell my first name correctly, but we have the redirect from activelyunwoke.com/substack as well, just in case that doesn't work. Anyway, the Woke Mind is a series of articles that I'm writing about the psychology of the woke left so that you can learn what to expect when you interact with them. And I am publishing these articles. There are currently, I believe, 3 on the Substack. I'm going to be creating podcast versions of all of them. And so you can head over to the Substack, and there's actually a section called the Woke Mind in the upper menu that will bring you right to all the articles in the series if you want to read the written version. But then we're also going to do the podcast version. I'm going to do an audio embed on it. So we're trying to get a lot of mileage out of the content, present it to you guys in a bunch of different ways. Some of you prefer listening to me talk. Some of you prefer reading my writing, whatever's clever. But I got a little catching up to do in terms of recording podcasts for those 3 articles, which I'm going to start doing right now. If you appreciate the podcast, I hope you will consider supporting me by becoming a supporter either on the Substack or by supporting me on Locals or Patreon, stuff like that. You can find more information at activelyunwoke.com/support. And because it is January, I am doing a membership drive on my Substack specifically, the Actively Unwoke one. I want to get 100 new paying supporters on my Actively Unwoke Substack by the end of the month in order to keep everything on it free for everyone. If I don't reach that goal, and I am on track to reach it, we're about halfway there right now. But if I don't reach that goal, I'm going to start putting a paywall up. And I don't really want to put a paywall up, but there are just realities that I need to contend with in regards to doing unwoke activism full time. And if you can support me with a $5 a month donation or more if you want to, or a $50 a year donation, whatever works for you, it really helps me out. It makes it so I am only beholden to you and what the truth is, and not to any organization, any political interest, any donor, like big time donors, any of that. I want to work for you, nothing else. But I can't do that without your financial support. So please consider a $5 a month donation on whatever platform works for you, whether that be Substack or Locals or Patreon, etc., etc. You can find the full list of ways to support me at activelyunwoke.com/support. And I really do appreciate it. All right, let's get into our article. This is again from the Woke Mind series. It is article number 1, and it's called Why You Should Never Expect the Woke Left to Behave Logically. Why? Why? I understand why people struggle to wrap their heads around the woke left. Oftentimes, people come to me desperately trying to understand why they do what they do, since it all seems completely illogical. Why do they refuse to acknowledge evidence when you show it to them? Why do they think it's okay to teach why do they think it's okay to teach sex to kindergarteners? Why can't they define what a woman is? And so on and so forth. They believe there must be a logical answer to all of these questions. That's natural. Their brain is desperate to identify patterns they can easily understand to help them make sense of this experience. That's part of our survival mechanism. Our brain is constantly analyzing our environment to make sure nothing out of the ordinary is going to put us in danger. But this search for logic in what the woke left does will fail every single time for one simple reason. The woke left does not value behaving logically. Expecting them to behave logically is a fool's errand. It's like expecting a cat to behave like a dog. You can hope and dream and wish upon a star all you like, but you can't make a cat behave like a dog. It's a cat. You have to accept a cat for what it is and be realistic that it will not change into a dog just because you want it to. The woke left does not value logic. They do not see virtue in being logical. They will never engage you in a logical conversation. And that's because they covet power above all else. Not logic, power. So, now, if we're on the same page that the primary goal of the woke left is to gain power, we need to take the next logical step in the equation. Does a logical conversation about their beliefs lead the woke left to gaining power, or does it lead to them losing power? So let's return to the questions I offered at the beginning of this essay and evaluate whether answering them logically will gain or lose the woke left power. Why do they refuse to acknowledge evidence when you show it to them? If you show the woke left evidence that critical race theory is taught in K through 12 schools, acknowledging that it's critical race theory will lose them power. They would be admitting what we all know is already true, that they are using public schools to push a political agenda, which exposes their game. They can't give you an honest, logical answer to the question. So instead, they have to say, of course, critical race theory isn't taught in K through 12 schools, or critical race theory is just teaching accurate history. Because that is what maintains their power. Why do they think it's okay to teach sex to kindergarteners? If you ask a woke leftist why they are integrating sex into classrooms in elementary schools, though through classroom decoration, books, lesson plans, and teachers' personal stories, and they acknowledge that they believe it's okay to talk to 5-year-olds about sex, that's not a good look. They would basically be admitting they are the groomers that James Lindsay says they are. So, of course, they can't do that because it would lose them power and hand a win to their political opponent. Instead, they're going to deflect and say they aren't teaching sex, they're teaching gender, which they will distinguish from sex completely. Why can't they define a woman? And you may be seeing the pattern here, but the reason they can't define a woman is because defining a woman would admit as an adult human, and you may see a pattern here, but the reason they can't define a woman is because defining a woman as an adult human female would lead them to losing power. Admitting there are two biological sexes would itself lead to them losing power. Admitting such a thing as biological sex exists at all would lead to them losing power. Yeah, say what you will about trust the science and there is no such thing as biological sex, and they will say those things in the same breath without any sense of irony because the goal is not to construct a logical thought. Therefore, this irony does not register as a problem. And being illogical itself gains power. The woke left is completely aware that these tactics, not admitting that critical race theory is taught in schools, not looking at evidence when you show it to them, teaching sex to 5-year-olds, not defining what a woman is, they are completely aware that these tactics will piss you off. They want you to say, that's not what I asked, or you didn't answer my question, or how can you possibly believe there's no such thing as a woman? It's a feature, not a bug. They know that frustrating you destabilizes you and takes away your ability to think clearly. They know that to onlookers, you look like you're the one in hysterics when you get frustrated. They know that the act of frustrating you will gain them even more power. It gives them power over you because you walked right into it and they were able to exert control over you. And it also gives them power over any onlookers. Remember, when you're posting on social media, people are always watching because they're drawing them in to their fucked up, illogical world. Your discomfort is the point. It's part of why they do it. There is only one exception to this rule. None of this is not to say that the woke left never uses logic, because they do. However, they will only do it under one specific set of circumstances, and you should know those circumstances by now. They will use logic when it benefits them to do so. If you present them with a scenario and the most logical answer also happens to gain them power in the situation, then they will be logical. For example, if you're at a school board meeting in extremely woke Burlington, Vermont, where the far left controls local politics, and there's not a single non socialist on the school board, and if you ask, does budgeting based on equity mean that we're funding students differently based on their race? And you do so believing that this seems kind of racist, because it is, but the problem is you're forgetting your audience. The woke leftist you're talking to is going to logically know that the school board, because it's in uber woke Burlington, Vermont, and it is filled with the farthest of the far left. If you ask them, doesn't budgeting based on equity mean that we're funding students differently based on race? The people you're talking to are going to be completely fine with that idea. And they're going to answer, yes. Yes. We know that's what we're doing. Now, you asked that question because you thought that you were exposing them as racist, which you did, but you forgot the people that you were talking to. The people that you're talking to are completely fine with this eventuality. And so exposing them as racist is no problem to them. And in fact, they will then use the opportunity to follow up and really nail it home by saying something that the school board would, again, logically agree with, like, some communities need to get ahead more. They might say something like, some communities need more to get ahead than others, and therefore it's only fair to give those communities exactly what they need. Now, what just happened was a completely logical conversation that leads to the woke ideology being further ingrained into the school budgeting process, because they behaved logically based on the people listening and with the specific goal of gaining more power in the situation. I know this might seem confusing. I'm going off of the article now. I'm doing a little additional commentary. I know this point might seem confusing. But again, you have to detach yourself from the situation. Just because you understand that budgeting based on skin color is racist, because it is, you can't always throw that out if you are surrounded by people that are completely okay with being racist, unless the whole point is that you're videoing it and showing the world what happened afterwards, which does happen at a school board meeting. You could easily show the video of you going to a school board meeting saying, "Isn't it racist to budget based on skin color?" And then even if everyone in the room hates you for doing that because you've exposed them, but they're not going to admit that you exposed them, they're going to be like, "Yes, we know it. We know that it means that we're budgeting based on skin color, and we know that might seem like we're doing things based on race, but some communities just need a little bit more to get ahead than others, and therefore it's only fair to give those communities what they need." Even if they say that to you in the room, but you have the video of that, you can use the video to broadcast that out to the world and get a response from the world, but don't expect that you're going to get a logical response from the people in that room. You have to be aware of who you're talking to and what their priorities are and who might be listening, and how, if you're not in the right room with the right kind of people, and by the right kind of people, I mean people who are logical and hinged into reality, which the woke left are not, You have to be strategic about how you're using that information. If you're going into hostile territory at a school board meeting, don't expect that the win is going to come from that school board meeting. You have to expect that the win is going to come when you take the video of that school board meeting and you put it on Twitter and you blast it all over the internet saying, look, the school board in Burlington, Vermont are basically admitting that they're racist. That's your win. But that's not what's going to happen in that room. You're not going to change the minds of anyone in that room. So you have to think through these things and think strategically. If I'm going into hostile territory, how can I use that for another audience that may not be in that room? I digress, but I felt the need to do a little bit more additional commentary on that one. Let's wrap up the article. Never confuse your values with their values. People have different values and different ways they see the world. You might value logic. You think that's the best way to live and a really good idea. The woke left disagrees. You do not share the same values. In discussions such as this is not a debate on whose values are better. You think yours are more valuable, and they think theirs are more valuable. This is an irreconcilable difference. It's like a debate between whether or not God exists or when does life begin. There are simply different views of the world which are not going to be reconcilable. Screaming, "Why aren't you being logical at the sky?" isn't going to change the situation. You must observe this from a detached perspective to know that a cat is a cat. And you can't wish it or scream it or it into being a dog. Just because you want the woke left to value logic over power will not make them do so. You must accept them as they are and for what they truly value based on what their behaviors tell us that they value. It is illogical to do otherwise. They are what they are, and it will not change anytime soon. Accept this fundamental fact, and you'll be a whole lot more effective in dealing with them. Resist it, and you'll continue to scream at the sky in frustration. And that's the end. I hope you found this valuable. If you'd like to leave a comment for me and tell me what you think, this article again is available on Carlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com, or you can find it a little bit easier by going to activelyunwoke.com/substack. It'll redirect you right there. This is the first article in the Woke Mind series. You can find the Woke Mind menu right at the top of the page where you can access all of the articles in the series. And while you're there, I hope you'll at least subscribe for free, because I do want to make every single article and podcast and video and all that stuff for free on my Substack. But if you can help me out and support me financially with a $5 a month subscription or a $50 a year subscription, I would really appreciate it. That's what's going to allow me to keep things free for everyone. And I do have a goal of getting 100 new paid subscribers on my Substack this month. And if I don't meet it, I'm going to put up a paywall, which I really don't want to do, but that's just the reality of how these things work. So if you can help me out financially, that would be amazing. And if you can't, if you're not in a position to do so, I totally get it. It is a tough time for a lot of people. And so if you could share out my work with your audiences, with your communities, on your social media, with your friends and family, share the podcast, share the articles, share the videos, stuff like that. Help me teach people about the woke ideology. Sharing is one of the most impactful things you guys can do, and I really do appreciate it. All right, guys, catch you next time.